welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, the Modi government has come back again and it's won a mandate, and what a mandate it has been. But now the question is why they won, why the Congress lost. That argument is not, that story is done, that debate has happened. What's going to happen ahead? That's something we're going to take a look at in Roundtable today. What are going to be the focus areas for this government? What should it be focusing on? What are the deliverables? To discuss that with me, I have joining me on the Roundtable, I have Jay Panda. He is the national spokesperson and vice president of the BJP. Dinesh Trivedi is the TMC leader, and Ashwin Sanghi, he's an author, columnist, and he's written books. I think you read his Bharat series. So we're good to have him here from Bombay, back in Delhi. Thank you for joining us on this show.
Pleasure to be here.
Jay, congratulations, first of all. It's been a great mandate that your party has won. But what is the road ahead? There are still a lot of apprehensions amongst the people, especially regarding the social narrative. So what are the focus areas that are of the government that are going to be?
First of all, this mandate is very rare, if not unique, because it's not just a renewed mandate, but an increased mandate. Now, in India's very large and diverse polity, for a single party to get a majority, last time it happened after 30 years, and now to get it back with an even bigger majority. And of course, if you take the NDA seats, it's even larger than that. I think we are at a historic turning point. It's an inflection point. People have, of course, redoubled their faith in Prime Minister Modi. There's no doubt about that. But I think people also sense that we are at a point where a reformist Prime Minister has laid the building blocks for changing the trajectory dramatically upwards for India's future. I'll come to the social issues in a minute, but the economy, for instance, is poised now to become the 5th largest economy in the world. It is poised to reach $3 trillion on the way to a $5 trillion economy, which puts it firmly on the path to, within a generation, within our lifetimes, seeing India as a developed country. Now, there will be many other issues that we'll deal with, but I'll deal with what you've asked right now. The Prime Minister's speech
Which one?
Where he called all the NDA MPs together in welcoming them and in thanking the people for their mandate, I think was phenomenal in terms of raising the aspirations of inclusivity, because this is a charge that has often been falsely made against his government, and his promise of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and now to reinforce that with Sabka Vishwas.
Yeah, I like that Vishwas line. I wonder how he's going to carry that.
Yes, I think it builds on that promise that we are not only going to work for everyone as equal citizens of India, no matter what your caste, creed, religion, whatever, but also that we will earn that trust. We will work towards getting that Vishwas. And you've seen in across the country, in areas where demographics earlier would have predicted that such a all-encompassing national narrative would not win. Only appeals to certain sections would prevail. That has been turned on its head. So here you're seeing this appeal to everyone as Indians prevailing across large swaths of the country, which used to be plagued with casteist appeals, with
yeah, so there's a new narrative also that's come into
an inclusive new narrative
that has come in. Dinesh bhai, you have been, we don't have a Congress person because Congress have just decided they're going to sit out for a while. So you are really the voice of the opposition.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, let me compliment BJP and Jay's party. You know, it's been a good mandate for them. But with this kind of mandate comes the responsibility. Aspiration, what Jay just mentioned, is also welcome. But with delivery system, what we have in the country, is not really very easy. We have seen Rajiv Gandhi winning with 400 plus, and we saw what happened. So I think one has to be very, very careful about it. And what will matter is the last mile connectivity in terms of jobs, in terms of availability of things, in terms of the farm, in terms of how harmonious relationship we have, peace and tranquility. So I think early days, but we would wish as an Indian We would wish the country to go ahead, and at the end of the day, what matters is the progress of the people who really need the most. And we'll have to see. And I think opposition at the moment should perhaps and will, as far as TMC is concerned, I can tell you for sure, wherever government does good things, TMC has always supported and will support. But at the same time, whenever there is something which is not keeping in the spirit of democracy or keeping in terms of the aspiration of the poorest of the poor, we would certainly voice our concern on the floor of the House and outside the Parliament as well.
In discussions such as this.
Absolutely.
So Ashwin, you've written the Bharat series, but there's a whole new chapter in Bharat that is happening. So what are your expectations from this government?
Well, I wrote a recent blog post which was Ye Dil Mange More.
Yes.
And the truth is that, I don't envy Modi ji's position at all, because the expectations are galloping ahead. And it's not just people who are urban, literate, living in cities. But if you look at the rural expectations, because they've all tasted something. The one thing that Modi ji has succeeded in doing during the last 5 years is giving people a taste of some delivery where they felt that, okay, something is now reaching me. Whether it was a gas cylinder, whether it was medical insurance, whether it was a certain amount of money towards the building of a toilet or building of a pakka home, there have been, the general impression is that his intentions are noble.
Yeah.
But now I do believe that a time has come when we need to take a step back, and we also need to look at what are the bigger picture issues which are plaguing our country, which somehow or the other seem to get rather scant attention in the manifestos of political parties. So, for example, I don't find too many political parties really talking about climate change with the seriousness that it needs to be looked at. Agrarian distress, we will just keep on handing out doles. But the truth is, till the time that we can't sort out the problems of irrigation, we've got water starvation areas which are cultivating sugarcane. Till the time we don't have more systematic cropping, till the time we don't have better soil analysis, we don't have a better cold chain distribution system, we are not going to sort out the problem of agrarian distress. And so, to a very great extent, a lot of these objectives, like doubling of farmer incomes, this is only going to be happening with a back to basics approach.
Yeah.
The other thing I hope that this government will do is do lateral thinking. I would love to see more technocrats, like, for example, S. Jaishankar type people coming in. You have a large enough ability, 540 odd seats in the Lok Sabha. So with 15% of that, which is the maximum size of your Union Council of Ministers, I would love to see, for example, a radical approach, and I hope that some of this will be taken back by Jai. For example, have one key deliverable for every minister during these next 5 years. Don't make them manage departments. Let every minister have one key deliverable for the next 5 years.
One key project.
Well, first of all, I think some of the challenges that Ashwin pointed out, they're all real. And everyone ought to be careful about high expectations. But exactly the same things were said 5 years ago when Modi ji won the first single-party majority mandate in 3 decades. And yet, not only did he meet those expectations, as we've just spoken, the country has responded with an increased mandate for Modi ji. So he's capable, if you look at his track record in Gujarat and 5 years as Prime Minister, he's capable of delivering on high expectations. Now, regarding those challenges, now, a lot of parties do a lot of talking about many things. Let's take climate change, for instance. But the single biggest thrust on tackling climate change was actually done in the last 5 years in India because of the thrust on solar.
Absolutely.
India has seen nothing close to what has happened in solar energy generation, solar electricity generation in the last 5 years. Now, if this doesn't tackle climate change, you tell me what does. And I can cite other examples like this. Agrarian distress. Now, there are articles now that there was some narrative that was, there is a real agrarian distress, but there was a narrative that was exaggerating the political implications of the agrarian distress. Now look at the PM Kisan scheme that has been introduced. It's actually a very significant policy shift. Now this time with a cash transfer to farmers. The farmer becomes that much freer to decide what he or she is going to grow. And this is, you've seen this happen in some states, for instance, like Telangana. So these are very, very significant. I agree with you, a lot needs to be done on irrigation, water management, and it will be done. Now, in terms of Modi ji's management, I think a lot has been said about what a strict taskmaster he is. He himself works for very, very long hours without taking a leave. It's already been announced that he will be holding review meetings with ministers within, I believe, the first quarter itself, and start setting targets and review them. Now, whether the targets will be 1 per minister or 5 per minister, large corporates sometimes have KRAs that go beyond one responsibility. So I believe ministers, and also he has shown that he rewards performers. And you've got a changed look in the Council of Ministers.
I don't know whether Piyush Goyal is going to agree with the rewarding of performers.
Well, look, you may have different people who are suitable for many things. Piyush is a friend of some of us. He's very, very capable. He's a professional, and he's handled very key ministries. What he's going to handle today in commerce is a very key area, because you see the global trade scenario is going through rather earth-shattering changes in the trade wars that are happening between the US and China. We have to be very careful, and putting some of our best talent to handle such situations is not at all a bad thing.
See, one of my big concerns is the increase of criminals in Parliament.
The number of...
And one would have expected that criminals, not necessarily everybody who has got a case is a proven criminal. But by and large, when there are serious cases of murders, rape, loot, extortion, and when you have that numbers increase in Parliament, then there is a serious concern about democracy. And I think this needs to be addressed. And I think the political parties themselves. Here I must tell you that cutting across party, maybe BJP or Congress or whatever, I'm not on particular partisan, but the fact is, all put together, India needs better people. I would have expected, Jay, if you would have won, we need people. There has to be people cutting across party line. The aim has to be one, which is India, Bharat, nothing beyond that. And why can't two parties belonging to two different ideology sit down and talk about the country? Can anybody defer that India needs irrigation? India needs better education. India needs innovation. India will never ever go to its rightful place unless and until we respect our talent. And by respecting our talent, what I mean is, we have our kids in Silicon Valley. They are redesigning the whole world. We want them back in India. Like Chinese students go back to China. Why can't we have? Because we need to give them respect. We need innovation in this country, and we have enough talent. India is blessed. Why do we have all the innovations coming from America? Because they spend money and they have enough time. Today a big program has to be in space. And believe me, this is where India, and I also would say the industrialists of India, need to pay enough attention to our talent, and don't only say that, okay, how long is it going to take? I want my money tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that. We need to invest money in talent.
Okay. We're going to take a break and come back and actually talk a lot about what are the other areas that we can focus on, but after a short break. Hello and welcome back to the Roundtable. We are here discussing the mandate that Prime Minister Modi's got, but also what he can do with that. We discuss agriculture, education, make in India, respect talent. But what about, we have a budget coming up also. So what would you be expecting from that?
Well, given the fact that, I was on my way in here, I was reading the BJP manifesto. And I saw lots of stuff there. But one of the things which I do believe needs a lot more resource allocation is education. I mean, we keep talking about a demographic dividend, but this demographic dividend could become a demographic disaster if we don't take care of this. And I believe that one of the big enablers could be technology. And I was happy to see that word being used along with the words related to education in the manifesto. So I think that is one thing which can easily be done. For example, if you already have achieved rural electrification, and if you have a broadband network available in a village, then there is no reason as to why you cannot deliver classes of a certain quality within that village. So I think there is scope for out-of-the-box thinking. The other thing which much as we feel that it is a resource drain of some sort, but we are living in a world which is increasingly insecure and unsafe. So whether we like it or not, our defense really desperately is crying out for modernization and upkeep so that we can at least maintain our parity in the world. But finally, internally, law and order justice. I think judicial review is so, today we have a situation where luckily most of the states in this country already have, we either have BJP governments or we have BJP affiliated governments. Right. This is the time when police force can be modernized with center-state cooperation. This is the time when we should be looking at having a free and frank discussion between the executive and the judiciary on filling up vacancies so that the pendency of cases can come down.
Correct.
These are very important issues, and they are going to affect long-term foreign investments and private investments if we don't get these things sorted out.
The budget, Jay, that's really the big ticket question. And you have the mandate, you have the center mandate and the state mandate.
Let me quickly respond to some of the points that Dinesh ji and Ashwin ji have pointed out. Thank you for the kind comments about me. I too wish that you had won. We do need good people, but we do have a lot of good people, a lot of talent that has come into Parliament and into the Council of Ministers, people with PhDs, people with technical qualifications, people with other sorts of educational backgrounds. I think we are seeing an improving graph there. Competence and capability is being added upon. Now, the economy and the budget. Let's note something which is quite seminal. Last month, the month of May, was the third straight month where GST collections topped 1 lakh crores per month. This is the GST kicking in. Now, the GST had a lot of problems. It didn't happen on autopilot. The Prime Minister had to do a lot of heavy lifting to make this happen, this dream that was there for 20 years. It makes India one market, and it willy-nilly drags everybody into a formal economy rather than an informal cash-based economy. This is what is going to enable the investments in education, the investments in health that my co-panelists were talking about.
Not his and my taxes.
No, I mean,
where are you going to raise this money from?
His and your and my taxes have in the past been used for doles which don't have a continuing effect.
Okay.
Now, doles may sometimes be necessary when there is a crisis, but the bigger focus has to be on, as they say, teaching a man to fish rather than giving him a fish each time. And let's take education, for instance. Now, we do need to allocate more resources, as Ashwin said, but what we also need to do more urgently is change the systems of administration. There are vested interests. There is education has become an extension of government departments, whereas in the last 5 years, in Modi ji's term, a lot of autonomy has been given to institutions like the IIMs and IITs. We need to take that forward because the great universities of half a century or 1 century ago have not maintained their standards, and it needs to be revamped. So a lot needs to be done in education. Now let's take a look at health, for instance.
Yes.
One of the seminal schemes that the Prime Minister introduced was the Ayushman Bharat scheme, because unless we can provide a safety net for the hundreds of millions of Indians who don't have the ability, when they have a certain crisis in the family, a medical crisis, the whole world collapses. Now, this is crucial, and this can happen only because the economy has been growing healthily. The GST revenues have been very good. Now, the Ayushman Bharat has been already implemented in, I believe, 33 states and union territories, but not all. There are still half a dozen or so, including Delhi, including Odisha, which have not yet implemented. We need to get them implemented.
Non-BJP governments.
And defense, you're absolutely right. This campaign, this last campaign, proved that people are not going to fall for false allegations. The country is desperately behind in its defense procurement. You know, the Air Force needs 400 fighter jets. The Navy needs at least 55, 57 fighter jets. 800 helicopters are needed between the Army, Navy, and the Indian Air Force. I can just go on. And there's such a huge backlog that needs to be attended to. You can see that this process started a few years ago in the first term, in the first Modi government, and this will be taken to the next logical level.
You know, this nationalism narrative is what worries me, Jay. Will that also happen in the economy? Will we see more of a role of a state rather than
First of all, nationalism
private?
should not worry anybody. Our nationalism narrative is
Not
something...
when it's shoved down your throat. It should just come instinctively. Prove your nationalism narrative is what...
Our nationalism narrative would have been cherished and supported and commended by Gandhiji, by Sardar Patel, by our founding fathers and mothers. What had happened over a period of several decades, last several decades, was that I think we had lost that identification as Indians. We had all become groups of subcastes and religions, and to rediscovering our Indianness and rediscovering that every citizen should be treated equally. There's nothing wrong in that. It's a wonderful thing. So look, you talk about nationalism being thrust down people's narratives. Don't blame government. Sometimes courts have ruled that you need to stand up and sing the national anthem. Sometimes courts have then reversed themselves and said that you don't really need to prove your nationalism in movie halls.
Correct.
Now, I think as a country, there may be institutions which sometimes cause a little bit of pause, but generally, I don't think anybody is thrusting nationalism down anybody's throats. The hundreds of millions of voters who voted supporting
and you will come back to the mandate, so that's something I cannot argue against. So.
Yes, so there's nothing wrong in that. You know, don't questioning the wisdom of the crowds is not a very democratic thing to do.
Well, I think Dinesh bhai, we're going to hear a lot more of this.
No, I think every Indian is a nationalist. I don't think so. Anybody is in a position to challenge anybody else's nationalism till time somebody does awfully something anti-national. So I think, for me, that's really not the debate. My concern, like I said, that actually a new religion is being born. And what is that new religion? The new religion is big data. The new religion is artificial intelligence. The new religion is technology. The world is moving very fast. And if we get bogged down into our traditional ways of thinking, I think India will be missing out on a great opportunity. This is the era of knowledge. We had era of century of industrial revolution. We had so many consumerism. Today it is knowledge. And you cannot have better country in terms of, again, talent, again, knowledge, than India.
Correct.
Because our entire, even if you talk about our religion, our scriptures, Vedas and Upanishad, it doesn't define who is a Hindu. Everybody who has the knowledge is a Hindu. So I think we should go back and discover our roots in terms of knowledge rather than narrowing ourselves into the practice and the rituals of so-called Hindu. Hindu is nothing but knowledge of everything. Yeah. And this is the time of India, and if you talk about the real spirit of Hindu, there's nothing but knowledge. And it is always inclusive. It does not tell you, if you do this, you are a Hindu. If you don't do this, you are not a Hindu. I want to ask somebody, how do you prove you are a Hindu? You prove that I'm not a Hindu, or you prove that you are a Hindu. It's only knowledge-based, and everybody is included in it, whoever has the knowledge. So the reason I say this, that today that spirit, again, is more in Silicon Valley, where innovation is taking place by Indians. Why I'm again and again mentioning? Because they're all Indians. If you see the big companies in the world, American companies, headed by Indians, why can't we have that talent here, give the environment, the atmosphere, and be inclusive, be very broad-minded. Forget about small things. Don't make an issue out of a small thing, and don't create a fight amongst ourselves. Give everybody the freedom of expression, and I think this is a great opportunity for all of us, whether we sit on this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle, and nothing is permanent. What is permanent is change. And I think if somebody says that we have arrived, good, you have arrived, but now will depend on delivery and cooperation of the opposition, no matter even if it's one party, would create the environment. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
May I have a brief intervention here? I think Dinesh ji has hit upon something very important about innovation, and he has mentioned it a couple of times about Silicon Valley. I want to point out that innovation happens when, right, like he says, the environment enables it, not when government tries to make innovation happen. America is the world's leading country for innovation because they have that environment, the enabling environment. In other countries where governments have tried to foster innovation, they've not been able to compete with America. And India is on the right track. Now look at what is this ease of doing business index all about? Now it has many implications, but one of the key implications is that innovation becomes easier. It facilitates innovation, it creates the platform that people can go out and try new things, they can set up businesses, they can set up startups and do that. And India saw the most spectacular improvement in ease of business in the last 5 years that any country has seen in a 5-year period since the World Bank started keeping these records. So if we keep up with that, we take our ease of doing business into the top 50 on that index, which is something that the Prime Minister aspires to. He has said so. It will tremendously positively impact innovation in India, besides many other things.
Well, let's see what signals come out in the budget. I think that's going to be the first statement of intent. We're totally out of time. Do you want
Can
to
I make one final point?
Quick
I just wanted to say one thing, that I was very, very happy to hear the words of the Prime Minister during the parliamentary meet which happened. And of course, besides the Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, but I loved the fact that he talked about that we are working not only for those who voted for us, but also for those who didn't. And I thought that was very statesmanlike. So I think we've got off on the right foot. Now we just need to make it work.
But look at the talent when you talk with such great authors and writers who are budding in India. They can stand up to any international standard, and people are reading a lot of Indian authors.
We are inspired by you, sir.
So make in India, read in India, write in India.
Absolutely.
That's it from us. Thank you for watching this show. We'll see you again same time next week.